I was 13 when a microwave appeared in our kitchen. Not fell through the roof. Not arrived on a cart. It just appeared on the table between a bowl of figs and my mother's bread like it had every right to be there. My mother dropped a bowl. Joseph stopped in the doorway with a plank under one arm. I did what any 13-year-old boy would do when confronted with impossible future machinery. I pressed the biggest button. The machine woke with a low electric hum that did not belong anywhere within several thousand years of our house. The sound filled the room like a threat wearing manners. Then, because apparently the first miracle was not stupid enough, a cardboard box dropped onto the table beside it. Bright red letters. Smiling pastry on the front. Hot Pocket. I picked it up, turned it over, and immediately knew things I had no business knowing. Freezers. Preservatives. Microwavable sleeves. A future country called America that seemed alarmingly committed to making lunch as reckless as possible. My mother asked what it was. Joseph asked if it was cursed. I said it looked like folded bread with a hidden agenda. That answer did not comfort anyone, but it did happen to be correct. The picture on the front showed a golden pastry split open with cheese and sauce pouring out of it like treasure. It looked fake, suspicious, and unbelievably good. I opened the box. Inside was a frozen brick in a crinkling wrapper. I grabbed it and almost dropped it because it was so cold it felt less like food and more like I was holding a piece of weather. There were instructions printed on the back. I should not have been able to read them. I could read them anyway. 2 minutes. Crisping sleeve. Warning. Filling may be hot. I remember thinking that was a ridiculous warning. Of course the filling may be hot. That is what cooking is. This was my first mistake. I slid the thing into its paper sleeve, set it on the glass plate inside the microwave, and shut the door with the confidence of someone who had no clue what he was doing but believed strongly in improvising. The numbers glowed green. I pressed more buttons. The plate began to spin. My mother took one full step backward and said, very quietly, "No." The machine hummed louder. The lamp flame bent toward it. The pastry turned slowly behind the dark glass like something being interrogated. A smell filled the kitchen. Bread, salt, meat, melted cheese. Also something metallic and wrong, like the future had overcooked itself slightly. Then the timer hit 0 and the machine chirped. That cheerful little beep remains, to this day, one of the most misleading sounds I have ever heard. I opened the door. Heat rolled out into my face. There on the glass plate sat the pastry, golden and puffed and completely innocent looking. Joseph told me to let it cool. My mother told me to let it cool. I heard them both, considered their wisdom, and ignored it immediately. I grabbed it. It was so hot I nearly threw it across the room. I bounced it between my hands in complete panic while trying to look like this was part of my plan. Joseph looked deeply disappointed in me. My mother looked completely unsurprised. By then I had committed too hard to retreat, so I blew on it once, tore it open, and discovered the second lie. The outside was merely hot. The inside was catastrophic. A flood of lava-hot sauce and cheese burst out onto my thumb. For one perfect, horrible instant, all thought left my body and I became a single unified scream. The burn healed almost immediately. The pain did not. The pain had already done its work and wanted full credit for it. Any wise person would have stopped there. I bit it anyway. At first I tasted crust. I actually had time to think, maybe this isn't so bad. Then the center ruptured across my tongue like I had bitten into the core of a small new sun. I made a sound no language has ever successfully captured. I staggered backward, knocked over a cup, slapped both hands over my mouth, and heard dogs outside begin barking in alarm. Water did nothing. Bread did nothing. Olive oil somehow made it worse. Honey also failed, proving that a surprising number of household items are useless against industrial lava. I opened my mouth to gasp and saw a faint red glow shining out onto the table. Joseph saw it too, then sat down very slowly like a man accepting that the day had defeated him. The microwave blinked its green digits at me again, calm as a priest. That was when I realized this thing had not simply heated food. It had revealed something, because the pastry was cool enough to hold, hot enough to trust, and hellish exactly where it mattered most. The warning was tiny. The damage was immediate. The danger lived at the center. And once I saw that, I saw more. I saw smiling men with warm voices and furnace hearts. I saw bright packages promising comfort while hiding consequences in the middle. I saw a future that would become very good at selling people things that hurt them a little faster than they could complain. The kitchen seemed to stretch through time. I saw fluorescent grocery aisles, apartment counters, midnight kitchens, exhausted people in soft clothes eating over sinks because they were too tired to make anything better. And I understood that the future would be obsessed with speed. Fast food.
Fast answers. Fast comfort.
Fast relief. People would burn themselves constantly and call it convenience. That realization was so bleak and so stupid that I started laughing. Not because it was pleasant, because the whole thing was absurd, because I was standing in a kitchen before the calendar had even started, losing a fight against a pastry from the future. My mother started laughing too. Joseph lasted a little longer, then looked at the microwave, looked at me, looked at the glowing bite mark in the pastry, and gave up completely. When the pain finally faded from divine punishment to regular insult, I placed the hot pocket on the table and regarded it with respect. It was one of the most effective objects I had ever encountered. The microwave door reflected my face back at me in warped black glass. For a moment I looked older, tired, like somewhere ahead there were larger things waiting for me than this. Then the feeling passed. What stayed was simpler and stranger. Not every revelation arrives on a mountain. Some of them arrive in a cardboard box with heating instructions and terrible intentions. I told my family that the world to come would invent many brilliant shortcuts, and most of them would burn people just enough that they kept using them anyway. My mother nodded immediately, because mothers can identify danger faster than prophets. Joseph poked the pastry with a scrap of wood like a man checking whether evil could be moved safely. Then I put my healed thumb against the crust and blessed the ridiculous thing. Not because it deserved blessing, but because one day somebody tired, broke, and alone would eat one and call that small warmth enough. The microwave went quiet. The lamp steadied. The whole kitchen seemed to decide, mercifully, to keep this event off the official record. Before the feeling left me completely, I picked up a piece of charcoal and wrote a warning on the side of the box. I wrote, "Let it rest, for the center burns hotter than the world appears." That is how I learned, years before the calendar began, that patience is holy, appearances are unreliable, and no one under any circumstances should bite a hot pocket immediately out of the microwave.